Hello, I'm Rachel Patton, Executive Director of Preserve Arkansas, the statewide nonprofit advocate for the preservation of Arkansas's historic places. Welcome to our virtual Mid Mod Arkansas tour. In this installment, we're excited to show you the Gilliam-Wilson and the Clark Houses in El Dorado, designed in 1957 and 1960 by Arkansas architect Charles Ripley.
This program was made available to you free of charge because of generous support from our sponsors. In particular, we'd like to thank our platinum presenting sponsor, Murphy USA, for their support. You'll see a special message from Murphy USA during intermission. We're also thankful for the support of our gold sponsor, the University of Arkansas Fay Jones School of Architecture and Design. Charles William Ripley was born in the community of Old Union, which lies roughly 7 miles to the west of El Dorado, on June 19, 1924, to parents Charles A. and Bertha Connor Ripley. Around 1930, the Ripley family moved to El Dorado, where Charles would spend the remainder of his childhood. Charles Ripley graduated from El Dorado High School in 1942. Shortly after he graduated, Ripley enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps. During World War II, Ripley served in the Pacific Theater, flying missions over India and Burma, crossing the Himalayan mountains over 228 times. He eventually obtained the rank of First Lieutenant and was also awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. Ripley was discharged from the U.S. Army Air Corps following the conclusion of the war, when he returned to Arkansas. Upon his return, Ripley moved to Fayetteville so that he could enroll in the newly created architecture program at the University of Arkansas. During his time at the university, Ripley grew very close to the architecture program's founder, John G. Williams. Williams' work and architectural ideology became very influential for Ripley in his later work. Also, while he was in Fayetteville, Ripley met Annie Lorene Applewhite of Brickey's community in Lee County, Arkansas. The two were married on August 10, 1947, in Marianna, Arkansas. After graduating from the university in 1951, as part of the second class to complete the program, Ripley and his wife moved to Alexandria, Louisiana, where he worked in offices of Barron, Heinberg, and Brocoto with fellow University of Arkansas graduate Raymond Branton. In 1954, Ripley returned to his hometown of El Dorado, Arkansas. That following year, he opened a small architectural practice with his stepfather, civil engineer Fleece M. Methvin, who was an engineer at 107 North Jackson Street. Over the following years, the pair designed several subdivisions around El Dorado, including the East Ridge Addition, Northwest Schoolview Addition, and Mermel Heights. In addition to the houses that Ripley designed in each of these developments, and as individual commissions, he also designed numerous other commercial and religious structures around the city, including the Simpson and Schaffner Optometry Clinic, Parkview Baptist Church, Holy Redeemer Catholic School, the Anthony Forest Products Facility, and the Chase Growcord Rubber Plant. Unfortunately, Ripley's successful career was cut short when he passed away on May 28, 1963, from a sudden heart attack. At the time of his passing, Ripley was working on the designs for a new high school and a new Union County hospital. These projects were taken over by the firm Granocchio, Cromwell, Carter, Dees, and Neeland of Little Rock when they purchased Ripley's practice shortly after his death. Ripley's major projects were handled by the main office, but the smaller projects were given to the Cromwell firm's local office employee, T.G. Connolly. One of the earliest designs attributed to Charles Ripley is the Gillum-Wilson house. in the scenic country club colony neighborhood of El Dorado. It was originally designed for Julian and Hope Gillum in 1956, being completed the following year. Julian Gillum, a Forest City native, moved to El Dorado after his return from serving in the United States Army Air Corps during World War II, where he earned the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Air Medal, and the Purple Heart. Shortly after his arrival in El Dorado, Gillum and his brother, Henry, founded a ready-mix concrete company that was in operation by 1946. Around this same time, Julian Gillum met Hope Wadsworth, who was originally from Westfield, New Jersey. The couple were married in 1950 and initially lived in a craftsman house at 100 South Newton Avenue. However, as the company grew and prospered, the Gillums decided it was time to construct a new home for their growing family, which eventually included 2 daughters, in the recently developed country club colony on the northern edge of El Dorado. It is believed that they enlisted the services of local architect Charles Ripley to design their new home in 1956. The resulting house was completed in 1957, and the Gillum family would spend the next several years in the house. However, in the late 1960s, the Gillum Brothers Company expanded to Little Rock, and Julian and his family decided to relocate to better oversee the operations. After the Gillums moved to Little Rock, their house was purchased by Dr. Larkin M. Wilson Jr. and his wife Susan Hoffmeister Wilson. Dr. Wilson was a native of Jonesboro, Arkansas, but had moved to Cleveland, Ohio for his medical education. It was there that he met Susan H. Simon, and the two were married in 1959. In the early 1960s, Dr. Wilson, who was a dentist, and Susan, who was a French teacher, relocated to El Dorado. Shortly thereafter, Dr. Larkin opened his own practice, and Susan went to work at the local schools. A few years later, they purchased the house at 111 Fairway from the Gillums. The Wilsons would remain in the house until 2018, when Susan Wilson sold it to the current owners. Like many of Ripley's designs, the Gillum-Wilson house has a subtle modernity from the street. Aside from the decorative wood screen on the street sides of the carport, the house looks much like any one of 100 other ranch-style houses in the area. The house is long and low, stretching out across the site. However, the ranch-like appearance of the house disappears as you move around it. As the ground drops away to the east, you suddenly become aware of the house's connection to the landscape. Ripley's use of natural materials, such as brick and wood, terraced planting beds, and flowing staircases makes it seem as though the house is rising up out of the hillside. It is here that you can really see the influence of Frank Lloyd Wright, who was very influential in Ripley's education. The large expanses of glass that look out onto the land, and the way in which the plan of the house wraps around natural features, making them as much a part of the design as any of the built elements, all point to the Wrightian basis for the design. However, when you come to the western facade of the house, the feeling changes. The windows are smaller and fewer. This was because the west side of the house faces the neighbors, so more privacy was needed. This too was likely inspired by Wright. In Wright's designs that had more urban settings, only the sides that face away from the public featured the walls of glass. Public-facing sides generally feature short, wide windows that were set high on the wall, not unlike what we see here. The exception to this on the Gillum-Wilson house is the northwest corner, which is again all glass. However, this area began its life a screened-in kitchen porch, a feature that was pretty common on historic homes in the area, thus giving a nod to the local architectural traditions. As you approach the house, the architecture is restrained but inviting. There are a pair of Roman brick walls that flank the double-door entrance that is framed by sidelights and a transom. These brick walls, one curving, one straight, draw into the house, welcoming you. Once inside, you are greeted by a foyer that is clad in pickled pine board and batten siding. This siding was favored of both Frank Lloyd Wright and Ripley's former classmate, Fay Jones. A small staircase off the foyer leads you past a retro-themed wet bar and into the main living room. This room is bright, airy, and open, with its high ceilings, exposed beams, and expansive walls of glass. These windows give the space a pavilion-like quality, where the landscape acts as an ever-changing wallpaper. The focal point of the room is the large off-center fireplace that is faced with the same Roman brick that is used on the exterior, enhancing the pavilion's feeling. Though the fireplace and chimney only occupy half of the wall, the fireplace hearth extends the remaining distance to create a cozy bench from which you can enjoy the view. The pickled pine from the foyer is carried on into the living room, creating a visual connection between the trees outside and the wood elements inside. Moving back through the foyer, you notice the flanking brick walls of the entrance actually extend into the house, adding to the feeling that the doors are but an ephemeral veil between the indoors and the outdoors. Another staircase off the foyer leads down to the rumpus room. Like the foyer and living room, this area of the house is also clad in wood, though this time it is wormwood. This material was very popular in the post-World War II era and adds a rich texture to the space. The den itself is also a bright open space despite being somewhat subterranean. This area was meant for children, with the durable wormwood walls and easy access to the yard through the sliding glass doors. It even had its own bathroom, so the children would not have to disturb the parents when they were having a cocktail party. Back on the main level of the house, a hallway off the foyer leads to the formal dining room of the home. Unlike the rest of the house, this room reflects a very traditional, almost colonial feel. This room demonstrates the somewhat contradictory environment of mid-century architecture in America. The rise in popularity of modern architecture was paralleled by an equal rise in popularity of colonial revival design. The Gillum-Wilson house is just one of the few houses where you can see influence of both. As previously mentioned, the former kitchen porch was enclosed to expand the kitchen space, creating a bright and cheery eating area and sunroom. The position of the kitchen in this house at the elbow of the L follows Frank Lloyd Wright's ideal planning in his Usonian designs. Wright thought the kitchen should be the center of the home, and as such should be placed between the public spaces and the bedroom wing, acting as a buffer between family life and public life. All of the bedrooms in the Gillum-Wilson house branch off a center hallway. A door separates the bedroom wing from the rest of the house, allowing it to be closed off whenever they were entertaining. This area of the house features 2 bedrooms, one for each of the Gillum's 2 daughters, as well as a spacious bathroom. Each of these bedrooms are rather large for the period and feature large sets of windows that look out onto the yard and allow in loads of natural light. They also feature an ample amount of built-in storage, which was somewhat unusual for the time. At the end of the hall is the master bedroom and master bath. The master bathroom has been recently remodeled, but the size is relatively the same as it would have been originally. However, the master bedroom still has a great deal of original charm. Like the living room, the master bedroom has high ceilings with exposed beams and a generous amount of glazing. The use of pickled pine paneling on the walls and the large windows gives the room a porch-like feel, thus connecting it both materially and atmospherically to the terrace that it opens onto. The connection to the outdoor spaces that these elements create were central to the Wrightian architecture during the mid-century period. Spaces felt both indoors and outdoors at the same time, creating a greater appreciation for the natural environment and enhancing the built environment. Taken as a whole, the Gillum-Wilson house is a remarkable, though somewhat understated example of mid-century residential design that stands out within an area that features several beautiful homes from that period.
Last year, Murphy USA embarked on a meaningful new partnership with Boys and Girls Clubs of America. At the time, we didn't realize how the world was about to change and how powerful our support was truly going to be. On behalf of the nearly 15,000 employees of Murphy USA, I want to thank you for supporting Murphy USA and Boys and Girls Clubs of America as we collectively work together, helping to ensure that all kids thrive in school, in the workforce, and in life. For many families, especially those with frontline and essential workers, finding a safe place for their kids during the day was a challenge. Thankfully, Boys and Girls Clubs of America was there, and thanks to Murphy USA customers, so are we. Through your generosity, we have been able to raise $3 million for Boys and Girls Clubs. That money is immediately put to work to meet the needs of kids and families in our communities. As our world gets back on track, your support is needed now more than ever. At Murphy USA, we are passionate about making a difference in the communities we serve. That's why we support Boys and Girls Clubs of America in doing whatever it takes for America's youth.
Thank you, Murphy USA. Thank you, Murphy USA.
A few years after the construction of the Gillum-Wilson house, Charles Ripley was commissioned to design a new home for Dr. Carey Clark and his wife Dorothy. Dr. Clark was a local veterinarian who was originally from the nearby town of Strong, and Dorothy Buck Clark was from the town of Wesson. Dr. Clark had established his practice in El Dorado by 1951 with an office on the northern edge of town on West Avenue. In 1959, the Clarks purchased a large plot of land near the El Dorado Country Club, and they hired Charles Ripley and his stepfather, F.M. Methvin, to design a residential development for them on it, which created the East Ridge subdivision. The Clarks reserved the largest and most prominent lot in the development for themselves, and they commissioned Ripley to design a new home for them on it. Completed in 1960, the resulting design is a signature example of the Ripley's approach to residential architecture during this period. The house is long and low, like his earlier work, with deep eaves and a gable-on-hip roof that is crowned with a monolithic but suppressed chimney. It is here that we can most see the influence of Charles Ripley's first architecture teacher, John G. Williams. Williams insisted that his students not simply imitate Wright's designs, but that they look at his work, writings, and architectural evolution to create a form language that was all their own. Like Williams himself, Ripley began looking at what had inspired Wright to create his Perry-style designs, traditional Japanese architecture. This influence from Japanese design is clearly seen in the Clark House. The elongated footprint, roof form, and window fenestration all point toward the traditional Japanese house. Like Wright, Ripley thought this architecture form, which reaches out into the landscape and runs parallel to it, with striking vertical accents, was ideal for the southern Arkansas setting, which was relatively flat with towering pine trees jutting out from it. Similar to the Gillum-Wilson house, the street facade of the Clark House is understated and somewhat ranch-style in appearance. There are few windows on this side of the house, with the few that do exist being short and placed in a long band high on the wall. The majority of the wall is clad in vertical wood siding, meant to echo the vertical lines of the trees, with a stacked stone and buff brick veneered foundation, meant to echo the rocky soil of the region. In this way, the exterior materials of the house have a visual connection to the natural environment in which it sits. Though it is unmistakably a modern form, it is still very subtle. Almost as subtle as the Oriental-inspired lamppost that accents the end of the entry walkway. The geometric design, seen on the lamp, is also a repeating motif in the house and is seen again on the chimney in the interior. However, the full modernity of the house is revealed as you move around it. The northern end of the house features a fully glazed gable end atop a massive picture window that is offset on the wall to create an interesting mass void composition. Another large section of windows awaits us on the eastern side of this section of the house, where the monolithic stacked stone chimney with its decorative geometric metal grate sits proudly at the elbow of the house. This corner leads into a string of short rectangular windows that run down the wall. These windows lead your eye to the large 3-car carport with its stacked stone columns, a true luxury in 1960. Interestingly, the term carport is actually attributed to Frank Lloyd Wright, who insisted that they were far superior to garages because garages, like attics, only invited clutter. On the rear of the carport, we come to the interior yard of the house. Here, the stone columns of the carport continue down the full length of the eastern wing of the house, creating a colonnade-like impression, with the innermost bay being entirely glazed with massive sliding glass doors. The perpendicular wall features a long ribbon of windows that again echo design elements of Japanese houses. This ribbon of glass rounds a corner to a recessed wall that features another large set of sliding glass doors. All of the glass that surrounds the interior yard of the Clark house perfectly follows Wright's advice on how a proper modern home should be, which was elaborated in a 1938 issue of Architectural Forum. The walls of glass not only allow in ample light, but also allow nature itself in the house. The southern end of the house features another fully glazed gable set into the otherwise hipped roof, mirroring the northern end. It also has 2 freestanding stone columns, which help to visually anchor the house, as well as to continue the theme begun in the carport. They also help to accentuate the deep projecting eaves of the house, which, aside from helping to visually tie the house to the landscape, also serve the functional purpose of providing plenty of shade to all of the long sections of windows. A visitor to the Clark house would approach down a long walkway that is illuminated by several recessed lights within the eave. This walkway leads to a flight of steps that take you to a small porch area which is somewhat compressed, like many of Wright's and Fay Jones's designs. However, once through the Oriental-inspired door, the visitor is greeted with soaring vaulted ceilings and a series of public rooms that wrap around the stone chimney. The living and dining room areas are part of one large space, with the living room being slightly sunken from the rest of the house. The walls are covered in a wood paneling that is similar to what was seen on the exterior of the house. A projecting shelf element surrounds the room and provides a space for some cove lighting. This shelf element is particularly interesting because it not only perfectly aligns with the wood paneling design of the wall, but also it is at the same height as the exterior eave, so that it appears to be a natural continuation on the interior. Subtle touches such as these serve to reinforce the connection between the interior and exterior of the house and help to blur the line between the two. Aside from the floor level change, the dining area is delineated by a decorative metal railing that matches the design seen on the lamppost and chimney outside. Again, this helps to visually connect the areas together. On the other side of the massive stone chimney from the dining area is the family room, kitchen, breakfast area, and utility area. These 4 spaces were originally all separated from each other by walls, but the current owners who purchased the house from the Clarks opened the spaces up to one another to improve the circulation of the space. However, they paid special attention in their renovations to preserve significant period details like the original jalousie windows in the kitchen and the built-in ironing board in the utility area. Just off of the breakfast room and the utility area is a small office space. This room is original to the house but does not appear on the original floor plan for the house, meaning it may have been a last-minute alteration to the design. The breakfast area features another carefully preserved original element to the house, the 3-globe ceramic light fixture. These light fixtures were very popular during the mid-century period, but few survived due to their fragile nature. Moving from the kitchen back towards the entry, we see that the size of the chimney is not just for aesthetics, but is actually functional as it contains a second fireplace in the family room. The bedroom wing of the house extends off of the entry area. Like the Gillum-Wilson house, the bedrooms are on one side of the hall, and the bathrooms are on the other side. Each bedroom features a full wall of windows, high vaulted ceilings, and a large closet. The first bedroom belonged to the Clark's oldest daughter, Judy, which is specially noted on the plans. The hall bath also has a generous amount of natural light, though it does not sacrifice privacy to get it. Despite being a modest size, it still feels bright and airy, thanks in large part to the abundance of windows. The second bedroom belonged to the Clark's other 2 daughters, Janet and Terry. Like Judy's room, there is no shortage of light or storage. However, special features had to be added to this room to accommodate the 2 children, namely a hidden bunk bed with built-in ladder, arguably the neatest feature of the house. At the end of the hall is the master bedroom and bathroom. Thanks to the large sliding glass doors and gable windows, this room is also full of natural light. This room also features an enviable amount of closet space. It should be noted that all of the bedrooms face onto the interior yard, as to have full privacy despite the walls of glass. The Dr. Carey and Dorothy Clark House was one of Ripley's best residential designs and fully exhibited his personal interpretation of Frank Lloyd Wright's writings. It represented a quiet modernity that responded to the functional needs of the family while still embracing the natural environment where it stood. Thanks to the thoughtful care of the present owners, the architecture of the house still shines today just as bright as it did when it was originally finished in 1960.